I moved into what I thought would be a quiet neighborhood governed by a well-run homeowners association. That illusion shattered when the HOA president began targeting me. Petty complaints turned into official violation notices, and soon I received threats of foreclosure over so-called unpaid dues that I had already settled. What the president didn't know was that I kept meticulous records and that I also happened to serve as a federal judge. After documenting months of harassment and compiling financial evidence, I requested a meeting with the HOA board. When I presented proof of the fraudulent charges and formally introduced myself as a federal judge, the room fell silent. The president, who had been pushing for the seizure of my home, froze in shock. The balance of power flipped instantly. Rather than me being forced out, the board launched an investigation into the president's misconduct. The ordeal taught me that unchecked HOA power can easily slip into abuse, but it also reinforced the importance of standing up, knowing your rights, and keeping records that protect you when intimidation escalates.
The abuse of HOA authority is one of the most common yet least discussed challenges that homeowners face. On paper, a homeowners association is meant to serve the community, enforce reasonable standards, and protect the property values of every resident. In practice, however, power concentrated in the hands of a small group or even a single HOA president can create an environment where rules are selectively applied, fines are inflated, and intimidation is used to control or silence homeowners. Understanding this dynamic is critical because it transforms what might seem like a small neighborhood dispute into a larger issue of governance, fairness, and accountability. At its core, an HOA is supposed to operate much like a miniature form of local government. Residents elect a board, the board enforces rules, and everyone contributes dues to maintain common areas and amenities. The system relies on the idea that leaders will act in good faith for the collective good. But when an HOA president decides to exploit their position, that balance is broken. Instead of serving the neighborhood, the HOA can become a personal tool for control, financial gain, or even retaliation. Abuse often begins subtly. A homeowner may notice that they are being cited for minor infractions while others are not, such as grass being an inch too high, a car parked in the wrong direction, or a holiday decoration left up for too long. While these may seem trivial, they set the stage for a pattern of targeted enforcement. When such authority is unchecked, what starts as selective nitpicking can escalate into severe actions like imposing excessive fines, placing liens, or even threatening foreclosure. One of the dangers lies in the perception of authority. Many homeowners assume that if the HOA issues a notice or a fine, it must be legitimate. They pay without question because they fear the alternative, losing their home. This fear gives unscrupulous leaders enormous leverage. In some cases, presidents or board members have been caught fabricating violations or adding unexplained fees to a resident's account. Because many homeowners are unfamiliar with the limits of HOA power or the protections offered by state law, they comply simply to avoid confrontation. In reality, HOAs do not have unlimited authority. Their power is defined by governing documents and state statutes, and they must follow proper procedures when assessing fines or pursuing legal action. However, an abusive president often counts on homeowners' lack of knowledge to push boundaries and exert control. Another form of abuse comes in the form of intimidation. Instead of operating transparently, some presidents create an atmosphere of fear where homeowners feel they cannot question decisions. Meetings may be conducted in ways that limit homeowner participation. Records may be withheld. Retaliation may follow anyone who dares to speak out. For example, a homeowner who raises a concern about accounting irregularities might suddenly find themselves cited for a series of violations that other neighbors are not facing. This type of retaliation is not only unethical, but often illegal. Yet it persists because many residents do not realize they have the right to challenge such actions, both within the HOA structure and in the courts if necessary. Education is the first line of defense. Homeowners need to understand that while HOAs have authority, it is not absolute. Governing documents, such as covenants, conditions, and restrictions, define what the HOA can and cannot do. State laws provide additional safeguards that prevent abuse, including due process requirements for fines and foreclosure. Homeowners who familiarize themselves with these rules are less likely to be manipulated. Equally important is the willingness to question authority. Asking for documentation, requesting records, and attending meetings are simple but powerful ways to hold an HOA president accountable. Ultimately, the abuse of HOA authority is not just about a single homeowner being unfairly targeted. It erodes trust in the community, pits neighbors against each other, and creates an environment of division rather than unity. When authority is abused, it diminishes the very purpose of an HOA, to protect and enhance property values through cooperation and fairness. Recognizing the signs of abuse and understanding the mechanisms of accountability are essential steps for any homeowner. By refusing to accept intimidation, demanding transparency, and insisting on fair application of rules, homeowners can prevent an HOA president from turning a position of service into a weapon of control.
The power of documentation and evidence cannot be overstated when it comes to protecting yourself against false claims or abusive practices, especially in the context of a homeowners association. Many disputes between homeowners and HOAs escalate not because of the severity of the issue, but because one side has evidence and the other does not. Having well-organized records creates a shield that can dismantle fabricated accusations and protect your rights when they are under threat. Far too often, homeowners lose disputes not because they are wrong, but because they cannot prove they are right. That difference rests on documentation. When a homeowner receives a violation notice or a demand for payment, the immediate reaction may be frustration or confusion. Some may ignore the notice, hoping it goes away, while others may rush to comply, even if the notice is questionable. Both responses are risky because they allow the HOA to dictate the narrative. Instead, the smarter approach is to treat every communication as part of a paper trail. Saving letters, emails, and official notices creates a record of what was said, when it was said, and how it was presented. These records can later demonstrate inconsistencies, errors, or even misconduct on the part of the HOA. For example, if you receive a violation for failing to maintain your lawn on that day, a simple photograph of your yard on that day may be enough to dispute the claim. If you are accused of missing a payment, keeping receipts, bank statements, or canceled checks can prove that the money was sent and received. Even something as basic as keeping envelopes with postmarks can show whether the HOA delivered notices within the proper time frame required by law or their own governing documents. Each piece of documentation may seem minor, but collectively they form a narrative that is difficult to deny. Documentation also prevents intimidation. HOAs sometimes rely on the assumption that homeowners will not push back. A homeowner who can calmly respond with evidence sends a clear message that they are prepared and informed. For instance, replying to an inflated fine with a copy of the association's bylaws highlighting the actual fee structure immediately undercuts an abusive claim. It shows that you are not only keeping records, but also willing to use them effectively. This often changes the dynamic, discouraging further attempts at manipulation. Beyond individual disputes, evidence plays a critical role when matters escalate to legal or formal complaints. If an HOA improperly attempts foreclosure, a homeowner armed with receipts, correspondence, and governing documents can present a strong defense in court. Judges, arbitrators, or mediators rely on evidence, not emotion, to determine outcomes. A homeowner who has carefully maintained records stands in a far stronger position than one who only relies on verbal arguments. This principle applies not only to financial matters, but also to broader disputes, such as election irregularities, discriminatory enforcement of rules, or failure to maintain common areas. Technology has made documentation easier than ever. Homeowners can store digital copies of receipts, scan letters, or take date-stamped photographs with their phones. Organizing these files into folders, such as payments, violations, and correspondence, ensures quick access if a dispute arises. It is equally wise to keep a physical binder with printed copies in case electronic records are ever lost. Some homeowners even choose to send important documents to themselves by certified mail to create an additional layer of verifiable proof. The key is consistency. Every notice, every payment, every communication should be saved, no matter how insignificant it may seem at the time. The educational takeaway is clear. Evidence transforms a homeowner from a passive recipient of HOA authority into an active participant in the process. Instead of relying on memory or verbal assurances, you have tangible proof that cannot be dismissed. This is empowering because it levels the playing field. An HOA president may hold a position of authority, but authority cannot override documented truth. With evidence, you don't have to match power with power. You simply present facts, and facts have the final word.
Knowing and asserting your rights is one of the most powerful defenses a homeowner can exercise when facing overreach by a homeowners association. Too often, homeowners believe that if the HOA says something, it must be correct or legally binding. In reality, HOAs have clearly defined limits on their authority, and homeowners are entitled to certain protections under both the association's governing documents and state law. The problem arises when people are unaware of these rights and therefore fail to assert them. Education and confidence are the keys that prevent intimidation from becoming successful. Every HOA is governed by a set of documents, typically called the Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, CC&Rs, along with bylaws and rules. These documents are essentially the HOA's constitution. They define what the HOA can regulate, how fines must be assessed, and what procedures must be followed when disputes arise. Many homeowners never read these documents after purchasing their homes, assuming they are only for the board to interpret. But taking the time to study them allows you to recognize when the HOA is acting outside its authority. For instance, if the CC&Rs say that fines must be preceded by a written warning and an opportunity to correct the violation, then a fine issued without that warning is invalid. By simply citing the relevant clause, a homeowner can challenge the action without needing a lawyer at the first stage. State laws provide another layer of protection. In most jurisdictions, HOA powers are not limitless. They are regulated by statutes that spell out homeowners' rights to due process, access to records, and fair treatment. For example, many states require HOAs to give notice before holding hearings, provide the homeowner with an opportunity to respond, and allow them to appeal decisions. Some states restrict the ability of HOAs to foreclose on homes or limit how quickly late fees can accumulate. By learning about these statutes, homeowners can identify when the HOA's actions cross a legal line. Knowing these rights also prevents the common tactic of intimidation, where HOA leaders count on residents' ignorance to enforce unfair rules. Asserting your rights is as important as knowing them. Knowledge without action changes nothing. When faced with questionable notices or fines, a homeowner should respond calmly, in writing, and with reference to specific rights. For example, instead of simply refusing to pay an unfair charge, a homeowner might write, "According to Section X of the CC&Rs, I am entitled to a written warning before a fine can be issued. Since no such warning was provided, this fine is not valid." By simply citing the relevant clause, a homeowner can challenge the action without needing a lawyer at the first stage. Another crucial right that many homeowners overlook is access to records. HOAs are usually required to keep financial documents, meeting minutes, and other records open to inspection by members. This right allows homeowners to monitor how dues are being spent and whether rules are being enforced fairly. If a homeowner suspects favoritism, misuse of funds, or procedural violations, requesting these records can provide proof. Again, many HOA leaders rely on the assumption that homeowners will never ask. By exercising this right, residents send a clear message that they are engaged and informed. It is also important to remember that asserting your rights should not be seen as hostility. Many homeowners fear retaliation or social friction if they stand up to an HOA board. But asserting rights is not about confrontation, it is about balance. HOAs exist to serve communities, not to dominate them. When homeowners confidently exercise their rights, they strengthen the community by ensuring fairness and accountability. In some cases, simply reminding the HOA that residents are knowledgeable can lead to more careful and transparent governance. In the end, knowledge of your rights is empowering, but the real protection comes when you actively and calmly put that knowledge into practice.
Accountability in leadership is the cornerstone of any healthy community, and this is especially true within a homeowners association. When people are elected or appointed to positions of authority, they are entrusted with the responsibility of serving others, not serving themselves. Without accountability, however, power can quickly turn into abuse. In the context of an HOA, where board members and presidents oversee finances, enforce rules, and influence the daily lives of homeowners, accountability ensures that decisions are made fairly, transparently, and for the good of the community. The absence of accountability often leads to favoritism, misuse of funds, intimidation, and a general erosion of trust. Understanding why accountability matters and how to uphold it is essential for protecting both individual homeowners and the community as a whole. One of the main reasons accountability is so important is that HOA boards and presidents operate with significant influence but often little oversight from outside authorities. Unlike government officials, they are not typically monitored by higher agencies unless a complaint is filed or legal action is taken. This creates a system where accountability must come from within the community itself. When homeowners fail to participate in elections, avoid attending meetings, or ignore financial reports, they unintentionally give board members free rein to act without scrutiny. This lack of engagement can embolden leaders who are inclined to misuse their position. Accountability begins with involvement. Homeowners who attend meetings, ask questions, and review budgets send a clear signal that leadership will be monitored. Financial accountability is one of the most crucial aspects. HOA boards manage funds collected from dues, and those funds are meant to maintain common areas, amenities, and neighborhood improvements. Without oversight, it becomes easy for funds to be misused or even misappropriated. Transparency in accounting, regular audits, and open access to financial records are vital safeguards. When leaders know that homeowners are paying attention, they are far less likely to engage in questionable practices. Conversely, when financial matters are hidden, vague, or rarely questioned, it creates fertile ground for abuse. Homeowners should insist on clear financial statements and exercise their right to review records. This not only ensures accountability, but also helps residents understand where their money is going. Rule enforcement is another area where accountability plays a key role. An HOA's rules are meant to be applied uniformly, without favoritism or discrimination. However, in communities where accountability is lacking, some board members may enforce rules selectively, targeting certain homeowners while ignoring violations committed by others. This breeds resentment and undermines the credibility of the HOA.
Holding leadership accountable in this area means questioning inconsistencies, documenting instances of selective enforcement, and demanding transparency in how decisions are made. When homeowners know that rules are enforced equally, trust in leadership grows. Accountability also extends to ethical conduct. HOA leaders must act in the best interests of the community, not for personal gain. Unfortunately, there are cases where leaders use their position to settle personal disputes, retaliate against critics, or push through policies that benefit themselves. This behavior not only harms individuals, but can also divide entire neighborhoods. When leaders engage in misconduct, it is the responsibility of the community to call it out, whether through internal challenges, petitions, or, if necessary, legal action. Allowing misconduct to continue unchallenged sends the message that abuse of power is acceptable, which only encourages further wrongdoing. Education and awareness are powerful tools for promoting accountability. Many homeowners do not realize that they have the right to question decisions, request documents, and even remove board members through established procedures if necessary. Knowing these mechanisms transforms accountability from an abstract concept into an actionable process. Leadership accountability is not about hostility or conflict. It is about balance and fairness. When leaders understand that they are being observed and held to standards, they are more likely to govern responsibly. In the end, accountability in leadership is not just about preventing abuse. It is about creating a culture of trust and cooperation. An HOA functions best when leaders act transparently, rules are applied consistently, finances are managed responsibly, and homeowners feel empowered to participate. Accountability ensures that power remains a tool for service rather than control. By demanding transparency, questioning irregularities, and staying engaged, homeowners protect their communities from misconduct while reinforcing the true purpose of an HOA, to enhance the neighborhood and safeguard the value of everyone's home.